Well, the gerrymandering fight continues around the country. Democrats trying to get an edge on this thing, and they're about to pass a referendum in California. Gavin Newsom's power grab out there. Now there's a power grab in Virginia. And whenever Democrats are confronted on this, they hem and they haw, and they can't really explain what it is they're doing. In a second, you're going to see Arnold Schwarzenegger, former governor of California, who opposes this. He is going to take Jake Tapper to school, and it does not end well for the journalist Girly Man. You're going to love that in a sec. But first, Hakeem Jeffries actually asked a tough question here. He is asked a tough question by Margaret Brennan on Face the Nation. You know how Marco Rubio and Scott Bessent and J.D. Vance, they sort of own Margaret Brennan when she tries to do her thing. Well, Hakeem Jeffries, not so much. He needs some lessons here.
I want to ask you about something you said. You said Democrats, there are no election deniers on our side of the aisle. You said that back in January. But recently, you've been using the term rigged elections in reference to the upcoming midterms. Democrats were appalled when President Trump used language like that. How do you justify using that now? Doesn't that undermine faith for voters? You need to show up.
No, I've been using that term in the context of Donald Trump's unprecedented effort to gerrymander congressional maps in a partisan fashion all across the country in order to rig the midterm elections and deny the ability of the American people to actually decide who should be in the majority as it relates to the House of Representatives.
You know, Democrats are also going through gerrymandering and redistricting.
No. Well, Democrats are going to push back aggressively to make sure that we have fair maps across the country, not partisan gerrymandering, which Republicans have initiated in state after state after state.
I just love it. Did he shave his mustache, by the way? What happened? He had the big, it was great. I don't know why he did that. And it's nice to see him appear without his hat. Yeah, that's Margaret Brennan. By the way, Margaret Brennan's being criticized for that line of questioning, what you just saw. Oh, now that Barry Weiss is in charge of CBS News, she's doing Republican talking points. How's that a Republican talking point? Yeah, we want fair maps. Go and take a look at the congressional districts in every single New England state. Even though those states, generally speaking, 35, 40, 45% vote Republican, every single one of them, solid blue across the board. They've gerrymandered every Republican voice out of the House of Representatives in every single. Maybe New Hampshire has one. I'm not sure. But the rest, it's all blue, completely blue. The South would be all red if it weren't for racial gerrymandering that's been supported by the Supreme Court. Of course, as we discussed last week, the Supreme Court seems on the verge of reversing that, and we shall see soon. But this gerrymandering issue is definitely heating up right now, especially because Virginia has now called a special session in the final week of their governor's campaign to try to gerrymander for the Democrats. And then, of course, there's California, where they have a proposition that would actually subvert their constitution temporarily, we're told, so that Gavin Newsom can flex his muscles and make his way to a presidential run. Well, Arnold Schwarzenegger, he opposes this move, mostly because he spearheaded a bipartisan agreement when he was governor to have an independent body be in charge of the districting of California. So he takes this personally. And by the way, Arnold, if I could just say, it serves you right. This is a great lesson. When Republicans win in a state like California, and then they decide they want to reach across the aisle and do something in a bipartisan fashion, this is what they do to you, Arnold. The second they get the opportunity, they will screw you. What happened to all that hold my hands and sing Kumbaya bipartisanship, Arnold? This is who they are. And this is why a lot of Republicans have said, all right, enough of this. I want someone like Trump who's going to fight to win. All right, setting that aside, Arnold is passionate about this issue. So Jake Tapper tried to play a game with him. Didn't end well.
As you acknowledged, this all started because of redistricting in Texas, and this was Trump pushing Republican-controlled states to throw out their current congressional maps so as to cook the books, so that it is less likely for Democrats to retake control of the House during the next year midterms. I mean, is it fair to argue that
All right, now let me just pause here. I'll translate Jake Tapper's question. Hey, you don't like Trump, right? You've opposed Trump in the past. So what the hell are you doing here? This is against Trump. This is about Trump. Make this about Trump. Be our friend again. We like it when you're against Trump. So if you're opposing this, that means you're on Trump's side. Do you want to be on Trump's side? That's basically what that question was.
I believe that the Republican Party is starting this.
No, Jake. There has been gerrymandering going on for 200 years. There is such extreme gerrymandering going on that in a state like Massachusetts, that has like 40% of the people voting for Trump, they have 0 representatives. The Republican Party has 0 representatives sent to the House. Think about that. In New Mexico, if 45% of the people voted for Trump and voted Republican, and 0 is sent to the House, 0 representatives from the Republican Party. So there's gerrymandering, crazy gerrymandering going on all over the country, and we wanted to try to stop it in California, and we did stop it in California, and we went around the country. So I think this whole thing about finger pointing and saying they did it, so therefore we should doing it, that's not really the way to go. The one party should outperform the other party. It should be performance. And when it comes to midterm elections, as you know, always the party that is not in the White House usually wins by 20, 25, 30 seats. So what does 5 seats matter in the first place in Texas? It is crazy. Yeah. We should outperform them. That is where the action is.
Do you think he's dyeing his hair? Oh, I could be wrong. I just thought Jake Tapper's hair was a little darker than that before. And now it's... Oh, Arnold, he's definitely dyeing his hair. Anyway, he makes a very good point there. Give me a break. Well, Republicans started it. You know what? Gerrymandering started literally the first time the colonies became states and they started drawing congressional districts. It's such an obscene lie. Well, but Texas is now redrawing, and it was because Trump demanded it. Well, no, Texas was pretty on board with it, trust me. They were like, no, don't make us do this, President Trump. No, no, no. No, Trump actually started to say, hey, how can we win and do better? And how can we get more Republicans? Why are there only this many coming out of Texas? Texas overwhelmingly votes Republican year after year after year after year. You got states that are comparable, like Massachusetts or New Mexico or other states, and they're completely represented by Democrats. Why don't the Republicans do that? And Republicans were like, oh, we hadn't thought of that. And of course they hadn't thought of that because they're dignified and they do things in a bipartisan, respectful way. If anything, this entire gerrymandering debate that we've been involved with for the last couple of months has educated the American people, number one, on the origins of gerrymandering and that there's nothing wrong with political gerrymandering because it's always been around. And number two, the fact that the Democrats have been obscene with their gerrymandering in the past. Do you think anybody knew up until like a month or two ago that Massachusetts was solid blue with every single congressional district in that state? Have you ever been to Western Massachusetts? I mean, it's not Alabama, but it's pretty conservative. I've been there, but they're represented by a Democrat. Same with Western Maryland. All right, so a little bit more from Arnold here, who was kind of feeling his oats, if I may.
I think when they say this is temporary, there is no such thing. I mean, the longest programs are government programs that are temporary. Okay, just remember that if it is a tax program or if it is the redistricting program, anything that is temporary with government is permanent. So they, in the year 2032, when the independent redistricting commission is supposed to come back, they're going to say, wait a minute, there's still gerrymandering going on in Texas. There's still gerrymandering going on in Ohio. There's still gerrymandering going on in Florida. We have to continue with the gerrymandering. This is what's going to happen. They will find an excuse. So therefore, I don't think it is temporary. So that's total fantasy. So the second thing is that you cannot cheat your way out of it. What they should do is, what the Democrats should do is they should outperform Trump. To me, it's all about competition creates performance. And so what they do is with the redistricting commission is that they're going to go and try to draw the district lines in such a way that they get voted in no matter if they work well or not for the American people. So the American people get cheated on this whole thing. That is really the problem here. To me,
Yeah.
I think when
And by the way, while we're on the subject of Arnold Schwarzenegger, another video occurred. This was at the USC School of Government, I think it was, where he started talking about the assassination 6 weeks ago now of our friend Charlie Kirk. This is worth watching too. Take a look.
said that someone's life was taken because they have a different opinion. I mean, it's just unbelievable. I mean, this was a great communicator, a great advocate for the right, for Republican causes. And he had such a great way of communicating with the students that agreed or disagreed with him. And I just thought about, it's a human being, a human life is gone. And he was a great father, a great husband, and I was thinking about his children. They will only be reading about him now, instead of him reading to them bedtime stories. I mean, it's just unbelievable of what is going on. So I was shocked when I saw this, as we all were.
All right. So a couple of things. And I play this for you for a couple of reasons. The first is maybe Arnold is starting to get it. Maybe Arnold suddenly recognizes what time it is and where we are in this country. It's not the 70s. It's not the 80s anymore, where, you know, we could just respectfully disagree and, oh, my good friend, he's a little... No. Things are a little different here. And I'll quarrel. It's nice to see him show some emotion. But here's the thing about Arnold. And I like the guy. I do. But let's face it. First of all, he's a Republican of a certain age. He's lived many decades through a different time. And I think that he's also, when he came of age politically and became a public, forward-facing Republican, he was already somewhat protected with his wealth. You know, you weren't canceling Arnold Schwarzenegger. He was also married to Maria Shriver, a member of the Kennedy family. So he had to be a certain kind of Republican to be accepted in those circles, right? Like that. And I think that he was somewhat naive about, you know, I think he maybe fashioned himself a bit of a modern age Ronald Reagan, who his magnetism and his personality would be able to win the day in the long run. And that didn't work out very well, did it? No. The Democrats in Sacramento and California, they destroyed him, or attempted to destroy him. And it got so bad for him that at the end, in the final 3 years of his second term as governor, I dare you to try to take a look at his policies and how he governed and compare it to most Democrats in this country. So the only quarrel I have with what he just said about Charlie Kirk and what we all witnessed was the word unbelievable. He kept repeating over and over again, oh my God, what they did to Charlie Kirk, it's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. I don't know anybody who, after the assassination of Charlie Kirk, said that what happened was unbelievable. Maybe the fact that it was Charlie, that threw us for a loop, because he was so young and he was the nice guy, right? I remember somebody, maybe it was Milo Yiannopoulos, who said they killed the nice guy. That was a tactical error, right? He was the reasonable one, right? That was unbelievable. That was shocking to the core. But the fact that some crazed lunatic motivated by anti-conservative, anti-Trump, anti-Christian rage would act out violently and murder someone in cold blood, that's not unbelievable at all. That's not unbelievable at all. And if Arnold Schwarzenegger has been paying attention over the course of the last several years, he wouldn't be shocked. He wouldn't say unbelievable. But that said, I play this for you because I think between his advocacy against Newsom and the gerrymandering and the Democrats, and realizing that everything I feel like maybe he's starting to get it. California, by the way, as I mentioned, is not the only place where a fight is going on. Abigail Spanberger and the Democrats in Virginia, 1 week before the election for governor, they've called a special session in Richmond to gerrymander Virginia politically. Virginia. of all states to basically eliminate over half of the Republican seats in the House. And by the way, this political tactic is motivated partially by their desire to get Winsome Sears, the lieutenant governor, off the campaign trail. They're going to meet today at 4 o'clock in Richmond. And because she's lieutenant governor, she has to go down to Richmond and preside over the Senate. That's her constitutional responsibility. This chick, Abigail, she didn't have a job. Please. She was a CIA officer. She served in Congress for 3 terms. She's set. Are you kidding? The kind of money she made doing those things because of the corruption involved? No, she can just, shop at Talbot's and blanket the state, trying to upgrade and get the new gig. It's craven. It's political. And by the way, this is what Abigail Spanberger said not very long ago about gerrymandering.
As a naming convention, but I'm going to keep pushing with it or for it. I think one of the largest issues plaguing our country is the issue of gerrymandering. I work with many, many people who their only electoral concern is whether or not they have a primary. And if you are in a D+20 district or an R+20 district, and your electoral concern is whether or not you're making your party base happy, that becomes limiting in the sorts of choices that you do or do not make for the country and for your broader electorate. I think that the Congress would be a lot more effective and would get along a lot better if the entire composition, or at least half the composition of Congress, had members who came from districts like ours.
There you go. The ours being Virginia 7, where it was like a D+2 or something like that, and had been represented by a Republican, Dave Bratt, right up until Abigail Spanberger won in 2018. So she was against gerrymandering. She wanted to make sure that more districts were fairly represented, and more toss-up and 50-50 would make Congress better. That's where she stood then. Now, she and her party in Virginia are more than happy to, 1 week before the election, shut everything down, call a special session, and re-gerrymander the state to benefit Democrats and defeat Republicans. Why? What changed? Well, there's a political action group out there headed by Eric Holder, and Barack Obama participates with them as well. They raise hundreds of millions of dollars, and the whole purpose of this political action committee is to redistrict states in favor of Democrats. And that PAC cut a $150,000 check to Abigail Spanberger on October 22nd, and an additional $150,000 check to the Democrat Party of Virginia on October 22nd. And October 23rd, they called for the special session. And Abigail Spanberger is all in favor of it. So $150,000, and she'll completely change her position on something. Listen, at least we know what business she's in. The only question now is figuring out the price. Good to know. But in the long run, if they keep playing this game and Republicans play for their states and their gerrymandering, it's not going to end well for them. Our friend Mr. Enton over here at CNN, he broke down exactly how little runway Democrats have in the gerrymander wars.
2018, right? Because that's sort of the baseline. That was, of course, the first Trump term. That was where Democrats were sort of keeping pace. You go back to April, look at the generic congressional ballot. What you see? You see +3 Democrats in 2025 in April. You see +3 Democrats back in April of 2017. Now jump over to this side of the screen. What happens? Well, the Democrats are no longer keeping pace with the pace that they were setting back in 2017, 2018. You look back in 2017, you saw that the Democrats had leaped up to an 8-point advantage. I remember covering this. I remember a lot of folks, including myself, saying, you know what, Republicans look pretty decent right now in terms of the fact that they had the House, they had the Senate, they had the presidency, but things were likely going to flip. And I was looking for the same signs this year. The bottom line is it hasn't happened, Kate Baldwin. It hasn't happened. Democrats have stayed basically steady. They have fallen off the pace. Democrats were way out ahead back in 2017 on the generic congressional ballot. And now we're basically looking at Democrats ahead. But again, they are so far in back of the pace that they set back there. And so I think what a lot of folks are seeing, folks like myself, are saying, wait a minute, given what we might be seeing in redistricting, is this +3 going to be enough, Kate Baldwin?
Well, that's what I was going to ask. One change from that cycle is also this mid-decade redistricting effort that we've been covering so much. You add that in, and what do you get?
Okay, so we add that and we take a look at the national picture, but then we, of course, taking a look at the state legislators, right? They are potentially changing things, and there are two things that are going on here. First off, net mid-decade redistricting gains. If both sides max out at this point, there are more Republican gains possible than Democratic gains. Yes, the Democrats might try to counter a Texas and a California, but you go along in the different states, and basically Democrats run out of room where Republicans are able to gain and gain and gain. If both sides max out, we're probably looking at a GOP gain of +7 House seats. That doesn't even take into account the potential gutting of the VRA that is right now going to be in front of the Supreme Court. If you add that in, you could be looking...
The Voting Rights Act.
What? Yes, exactly right. The Voting Rights Act. If you add that in, then you could be looking about adding 10, 12, 15, 17 on top of this 7 seats. So I think a lot of folks like myself are looking at this. We're seeing, hey, wait a minute. Those national polls are Democrats are not gaining the way that we expected.
That's right. And the bottom line is Democrats are in big trouble, regardless of the redistricting and the gerrymandering. If you just ran the election today, they've only got a +3 going into the midterms. And that's even before the changes to the economy and the tax cuts that President Trump and the Republicans just passed through actually take effect next year. Not looking good for Democrats. That's why they're doing this. But ultimately, if Republicans respond in kind, Republicans are sitting pretty. It's a good time right now to be a Republican, actually, with real leadership and the ability to push back against all of these lies. And it's a very bad time to be a Democrat.